If there are questions for our panelists, we have a microphone here. If you just raise your hand, we'll make sure the microphone's on both sides. Please identify yourself. Keep it brief so we can get to as many of you as possible. And if you have somebody in particular on the panel, please pose the question to them. So we have a question right here in the back first.
Yes, thank you. My name's Erin Shoemaker. I'm an intern here at Heritage. This is mostly directed to Ms. Wyndham. I just want to especially thank you on behalf of CCU for representing us. I am a student there and I do receive scholarship money, so the fact that we would be fined that much money just shows the risk that I would run of losing my scholarship.
That's the Colorado Christian
University, yes ma'am. So I just want to thank you. I know I can probably speak on behalf of my entire school when I say that. But my question is, how can we, as just citizens, stand in solidarity and show our solidarity with groups like CCU and other universities and organizations and whatnot that are going against the Obamacare mandate? How can we show them that we are supporting them?
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, and I think CCU has really taken a courageous stand because they are only one among many universities who stand to really lose, stand to face serious fines because of their religious beliefs, because of this mandate. And I think some of the others may also have some very good ideas, but I think the important thing is to speak out and let it be known that there are many religious people in this country, and even people perhaps who are not religious but who understand that there are fundamental constitutional rights and freedoms at stake. This is something we're not going to sit down for. This is something that we're going to stand up and speak out against because these are our First Amendment freedoms, and we're not going to surrender them willingly.
There was a question in the
Can I just
over
add
here?
something to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I do a lot of work with Grassroots and so forth, and one of the most important things is talking about the issue, because just the other day I was visiting family and there's a distant relative and all she knows about this issue is what Planned Parenthood is saying about this issue, that a bunch of men are talking about women's health. That's all that she knows because that's what she's heard. And people's decisions are really influenced by the people that are closest to them. So find ways to talk about it and to bring up the bigger issues. And secondly, there's a major election coming up, and not just the national election, but we also have state and local. And people, every citizen, I think, has an obligation, not just to write, but I personally believe an obligation to be involved and to vote. That is where your voice is heard. So I think people really need to get involved. I think we're becoming kind of a nation of couch potatoes. We let a few groups here in Washington or a few activist groups across the country make decisions for us. But if we do that, then we're giving up our voice. And we, as citizens, there's a system there, and we need to use it.
Congresswoman Burkle, your ideas on what people can and should be doing to protect and defend the freedom of conscience?
Well, I think first of all, as was mentioned, and I'll mention it again, don't be co-opted into making this a contraceptive, an abortion, or a sterilization issue, or a women's health issue. It's none of the above. It is a matter of your freedom. It is an assault on the Constitution of the United States of America, a document that we believe is alive and well and remains the guiding light for our nation. So that would be my first thing. Don't fall prey to the very vocal, because if it's made a contraceptive issue, they'll win. And that's why they've done it very cleverly. The issue is about freedom. The issue is about the First Amendment to the Constitution. Beyond that, let your voices be heard, and as was mentioned, talk to others, just educate, talk to others, let your congressman know, let just all of your elected officials, and don't be complacent. Don't be complacent. That's how we lose, and that's how we lose our freedoms.
Does anyone want to address legislative attempts to block this proposed mandate?
Right now in the House of Representatives, Jeff Fortenberry from Nebraska has a bill. It's a conscience bill that he actually put out last March, long before this controversy ever started, in anticipation. As I mentioned, this is what you would expect when you allow the government to mandate that you have to have health care, and then this is exactly what he expected would happen. We're looking into, and I met with leadership last week, in legislation that would repeal the section of the healthcare law where this rule was promulgated from, in another attempt to get at this from all sides. There's been some conversations about repealing, or excuse me, defunding that HHS rule as well. So there are a lot of different initiatives, but overall, I think you really have to understand the seriousness of this issue, and that it is an assault on our Constitution. It's not women's health. It's much bigger than that.
There's a question back here.
Josh Good with another legal follow-up question, probably mostly for Lori or perhaps for Congressman Burkle. What are your thoughts about the implications of the Hosanna-Tabor decision on the Supreme Court, and more recently the Stormans v. Selecki decision out in Washington State for this setting?
I think both of those decisions are very encouraging. Hosanna-Tabor was a 9-0 decision from the Supreme Court. We litigated that case at the Beckett Fund, and we're very excited about the result. It was a victory for religious organizations, and what it said was that the government cannot come in and meddle and tell religious organizations how they're going to run their internal affairs. And so we think that that is a very important precedent. The administration, in response to that, as part of their defense of what the EEOC was doing in that case, said that religious organizations have no more rights than a political party or a labor union. They said there's nothing special about the First Amendment, about the Free Exercise Clause or the Establishment Clause that give them special rights and religious freedoms, and obviously the Supreme Court was having none of that and rejected that argument 9-0, so we think that's very encouraging. The Stormans case, this was a case of pharmacists and family-owned pharmacy in Washington State who have religious objections to stocking Plan B and Ella, and a federal court has just vindicated their rights to refuse to do so. And this is another case we litigated, and we think it's an important precedent showing that the Free Exercise Clause does in fact protect these rights and protect your right to conscientious objection.
The only thing I would add to that is the importance of the Supreme Court, and if you think elections don't matter, George Bush's greatest legacy are the 3 appointments he made on the Supreme Court, and you know, we just need to be aware of that these Supreme Court, they have lifetime tenure. You all probably witnessed the State of the Union where the President openly chastised the members of the Supreme Court for their Citizens United decision. Extremely, extremely inappropriate. So elections matter, and specifically the appointments of the Supreme Court.
There's a question here, and then we have one down here.
Hi, this question is for the Congresswoman. My name is Michelle Fields. I'm from the Daily Caller. A lot of Catholic leaders are battling this issue with Congress. I think. Is it working? Okay. With Congress. But a new poll came out last week through Gallup, and basically the Catholic vote has been unaffected with in regards to their feelings towards Obama. There hasn't been much of a change whatsoever. Why do you think Catholics aren't really affected by this issue? Why they don't feel any, why they aren't affected by, like with Obama? Why hasn't it had any effect on his approval ratings?
Well, I think primarily because a lot of Americans and American Catholics really are, for them, this is an issue of contraception, and they're saying, well, I'm just going to do whatever I do. And that really is not the issue here. It's not why the Catholic Church has been so vocal about it. And they have, the leaders of the Catholic Church have taken on the fight, but also the leaders of the Lutheran Church and the Jewish community, they've all taken on this fight because they know the seriousness of it. But I think there's an awful lot of noise going on, and that's why it's incumbent upon us as leaders to make sure that every American knows and understands what's at issue here. It's not women's health. It's not contraception. It's not abortion. It is the First Amendment and the right to religious freedom.
It's such a big question you've asked, Michelle. First of all, as I'm sure you know, there is no such thing as the Catholic vote. I mean, there's no monolithic Catholic vote. The controversy is about 3 weeks old. At the moment, if you were sort of inattentive, you'd think that the federal government, in its benevolence, wants to offer everybody free contraception and sterilizations. And some churches have a problem with that. We have to watch as this debate plays out, as people get a firmer understanding of the incredible effect this is going to have on some of the most important work our churches and people of conscience do, I would guess that they would rather not see fewer sick cared for, fewer hungry fed, fewer children educated, in order to make a point that pleases some left-wing Institute of Medicine panel, when there are alternatives if there are any access and cost problems. I bet there are bipartisan alternatives. And when members of Congress have trouble agreeing on certain things, I hope you realize what they are no longer agreeing on here. They've always agreed on protecting and defending freedom of conscience. Ted Kennedy was an original co-sponsor of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. There's a lot we argue about, but we can agree that in America you have freedom of conscience. The government can never, will never, we can agree, force you to betray your moral convictions. And that's why Senator Scott Brown, I just saw him the other day, he backs the legislation Congresswoman Burkle was talking about because he said he shares the late Senator Ted Kennedy's view on conscience protections. That used to be the case. So as this debate goes on longer than 3 weeks, as I said, having made the point that there's not a monolith, I venture to say that Catholic voters and many others don't want to see religious institutions fined, right, for practicing their freedom of conscience, for refusing to betray their freedom of conscience. I don't think they'll be comfortable with religious freedom no longer being free. So we'll see. And there was a question down here.
My name is Tina Ramirez, and I am actually the Director of Government and International Relations at the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty. So I'm here with my colleague Lori, and I just wanted to point out one thing that somebody had asked, what could you do? And I know you go to CCU. So one of the things that you could do is that several of the board members at the Becket Fund have actually initiated this unacceptable letter. And so there's over 500 academics and a number of other leaders in the country that have signed this letter, but encourage your religious leaders in your community or your college professors to sign on to the letter. If you are interested in signing on, you can actually email us at the Becket Fund and we can get their names onto the unacceptable letter. But there's over 500 now, so it's a broad bipartisan list of people. So it's not just one particular point of view, not just men, but also women. And it's a really important thing for you to let people know about so that they can sign on. There's also the petition on our website if you want to sign on to it from there as well.
If I could add just one thing, I think, and it isn't just Catholics, it's Americans in general aren't paying attention to a lot of what's going on. There is an awful lot of noise coming out of Washington. But most recently, there was HHS gives grants out to several agencies who deal with human trafficking. And the Catholic Church scored second out of 9 in that grading. The 9 applicants, they scored second. And they were denied the application, they were denied the grant money because they would not refer for abortion, abortifacients, or sterilization. And that's a perfect example. I don't know if people are paying attention at this point because, as Kate mentioned, this is all kind of percolating, and those who pay attention to policy in Washington are aware of these things. But I think as the word gets out, you will see people, I think, more and more understanding there is an assault on all faiths, and that's the big issue.
There's a question down here.
Yeah, hi, Bridget Wagner from Heritage. Thanks so much. Maggie, I thought you gave a very powerful statement. I'm interested in what other churches might be speaking out on this besides the Catholic Church and the Missouri Synod. Kate, Catherine Lopez has been doing a fabulous job blogging on the Corner on this. I'm wondering, does she also have a petition up? And what other bloggers or what other websites can folks go to besides Heritage's Foundry and the Corner to stay up to date on this? And Congresswoman, when do you expect this legislative remedy to be moving on the Senate side and on the House side? And what are the other legal organizations doing out there besides Becket Fund? You guys are taking the lead clearly, but I think there are a number of other organizations that we might need to have on our radar screen as well.
Bridget, I think this is perfect because you're allowing each panelist to answer your question and make a wrap-up remark. So shall we begin down with Maggie quickly?
Yeah, there's a broad coalition of church bodies that Protestant, and even as you saw in the congressional hearing last week, our Jewish brothers and sisters and everyone is pretty much outraged by this because it's something like we've never seen before. It's frightening. And so there's broad consensus among the religious community that this is something that just is not acceptable. And I know Focus on the Family and a variety of other Protestant organizations are involved in this. We as Lutherans tend to be sort of quietistic sometimes. We don't normally jump into the public fray on things. And that should give you an indication of just how frightening this is, because it takes a lot to get us involved. And so that's why I'm here today. So yeah, it's a scary thing.
Thank you, Maggie. Pia, any other websites people should be going to for more information or the kind of involvement we're just talking about?
Well, I'm one of several bloggers at CatholicVote.org, and they've been doing a pretty good coverage of this. I have my own blog, which is piadesaloni.com or moraltheologian.com, and I'm also working on a statement that will be focused on reclaiming the terms women's health and preventative health, because right now the administration is using it in a way that focuses it on contraception and abortion. And the reality is that there are lots of women out there of all sorts of different faith beliefs who have very different views on contraception and even on abortion, who don't see women's health as simply about contraception and abortion. There's a whole lot more in a woman's life and with regard to her health that needs attention. And what I'm excited at seeing about other religious groups come up, express their voices here, I think that there's a real potential here. We need to claim back in the United States just how much care in terms of medical care and social services is provided by religious groups and groups of faith. And way back when the euthanasia bill was first introduced in the state of Washington, Cardinal George, who's now in Chicago, he was the bishop there. And the way that that bill was largely defeated was he got up and he said, "You pass that bill and I will shut down every Catholic institution in the state." Well, even in liberal Oregon, the Catholic Church provided a substantial amount of care, and I think this battle is just beginning, and we're going to I think we're going to see a lot more developing. But the real question is, the federal government is basically undervaluing and dismissing the services provided by all sorts of groups, religious groups, and I think this is going to force us to band together and to stake out our claim, because the federal government, frankly, can't replace all of the services that these organizations are doing, and our nation depends on these services and the care that they provide.
Lori, any other litigation we should be aware of?
Well, there have been several lawsuits filed challenging this. Obviously, the 4 that we're involved with, I know several states have also filed lawsuits against this, the Catholic bishops as well. So there are going to be many different opportunities for the federal courts to address this.
Excellent. Hadley, you have closing?
Oh, sure. I
Comments,
think
anything?
absolutely. I appreciate the Congresswoman's remarks about not getting sucked into the other side of this debate. I work for IWF. We're at iwf.org. And part of our mission is really to combat the idea that women all want and benefit from bigger government intrusion in our lives. So I actually saw a quote that I was really concerned by from the president of the National Organization for Women. And she said that anyone who's against birth control coverage is against birth control, period. And that is just blatantly false. I think that's this concerns me because it makes me think that perhaps some feminist organizations on the left are deliberately misleading people about this debate. Obviously, not all people who oppose mandated birth control coverage are opposed to birth control. So I think it's important that we take back the terms of this debate, and obviously at IWF there are a lot of women who favor limited government and personal freedom. You don't have to be anti-abortion. You don't have to be religious to, sign up for our newsletter and become a fan of IWF. And we also have a sister organization, Independent Women's Voice, who started a petition at savingourhealthcare.org. And so if you're interested for another way for your voice to be heard, our petition is actually titled Protect the First Amendment from Obamacare. I think we've noted today that this HHS mandate is just one more symptom of Obamacare's unconstitutional approach to health care and really to governance in general. So I encourage you all to get involved and to really tune in for what's happening next in this debate. Thanks.
Congresswoman Burkle, the final remarks are yours.
Thank you. It's great to be here, to see so many young faces and interested in the issues. I would just say this is really an issue of freedom and our liberties being eroded in the United States of America. The issue is much bigger, and again, please don't be co-opted by this very small piece of the debate. The debate is about your personal liberties as an American in the United States of America, the greatest nation in the history of the world, this country. And it is because we are unique, because we believe in the value of the individual, not in the collective government. So fight hard, all of the other ancillary issues, stay focused and fight hard for your freedoms and that we adhere to the Constitution. And as we have the wonderful opportunity to be here this afternoon, please keep in your thoughts and your prayers the men and women who serve our country as we have this opportunity to have this discussion. We do live in the greatest nation, and it is because of the service and the sacrifice of the men and women who served our country. And for any of the veterans in the audience, thank you for your service to the United States. It's been great to be here. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer and I would like to thank all of you for doing such a good job informing our audience, and thank you all for joining us.